Good morning, I'm Frank Powers, and this is Lifestyle Tucson, the program where I speak to our neighbors, the people behind the scenes of our amazing organizations, small businesses, and nonprofits. Our friends are informing you how they serve our community, and they are here to give you updates on future projects. Let's make some new friends today. If you've ever wished you could grow your own tasty organic food, Community Gardens of Tucson has a plot for you. They have 17 gardens located across the city, each with automatic irrigation tools. And when you garden with the Community Gardens of Tucson, you become a member of a supportive gardening community that is with you every step of the way. Meet new friends and have lots of fun while enjoying your harvest. And making new friends is the theme of Lifestyle Tucson. So I give that message a big green thumbs up, because today I'm fortunate enough to speak with Natalie Shep, Board Vice President of Community Gardens of Tucson. Natalie, welcome to Lifestyle Tucson.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you. My friend Tom gave me the scoop on what you're doing, and I love community gardens because community is my favorite thing. Even in movies, I love when a ragtag group of kids get together and work on a project, and at the end, they save the orphanage or, in fact, maybe feed a community here. So that's really fun. Why don't you give me a little 101 about what the Community Gardens of Tucson is all about?
Sure. So the Community Gardens of Tucson we're now a 30-year-old nonprofit organization. We have 17 gardens located throughout the city of Tucson, and it's designed so that people can sign up for a 6-month growing period. And you basically rent a plot. The plots are about 60 square feet. And when you opt in for that growing period, you're going to pay $22 a month, and that's going to get you the water, the space, the education, the tools. And then gardeners themselves need to basically supply the soil amendments, compost, manure, things like that, seeds and plants. And so it's a great way to, if you've never gardened before, especially, or if you've come from the East Coast and you come here and you want to garden, oftentimes we do see people who are maybe trying to grow in the same way they did back east or in the Midwest. And oftentimes, it's opposite here. So you have to kind of relearn how you're growing. So it's a great way to get that education. And then, it is the Community Gardens of Tucson. So the idea is that we are building community through gardening, and that we bring people together in these beautiful spaces and share produce amongst ourselves, share ideas, make it a beautiful community space. And it is really wonderful to be a part of it. And I'm happy to be on the board and to have been a part of the organization for the last 13 years.
I mean, that sounds super cheap. I'm canceling Disney Plus as I speak because I'd rather leave the house, get off the couch, and come hang out and make some real friends.
That's right.
Those new Marvel shows have been terrible. All right. So that's the thing about it. I want people to really realize what this is because, again, it's another one of our great organizations in Tucson that's providing an opportunity to fight against the thing that everyone still claims exists. I'm bored, right? A lot of people are bored. A lot of people think there's nothing to do. And I always tell people to go volunteer, go get involved, but specifically get out of the house. And this is how people make friends. I have a lot of adult friends that they don't know how to make new friends. And I've always told them that volunteering is the way to do it. My big message that I always say, and it might be every episode, don't make your friends do the things you want to do. Make friends with people doing the things that you want to do.
Exactly.
They're out there. You don't need to go start your own community garden organization. There's one that's been around for 30 years, and you might just be hearing about it now. That's why I love what I do here at Lifestyle Tucson. We get to shout out the good news here in our community and build that community, and not just build, but grow. That's the word of the day, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. So when it comes to the gardens, let's talk about the programs because you have a lot of great programs, and I really want to take the time to just dissect them a little bit because I want to go through them one by one. So let's talk about the first one. That is the one that got my attention the most, and it's helping kids, because helping kids is really the other main thing that I love to do with the show, getting awareness out there for things that kids can do. So you have your Kids in Gardens program for youth K through 6th. Tell me about that one.
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout out to Jessica Paul, who basically created this program from the ground up. She has participated in a number of different trainings to really educate herself and build the curriculum out so that students can really learn about all the benefits of gardening. So it's everything from soil preparation to when to plant. She's working with schools and with homeschool groups, and she's going out to different schools such as Homer Davis, Mary Meredith, Pio Decimo, working with a wide variety of students and the teachers. And there's so many benefits that come from getting kids in the garden. Not only, I mean, we definitely have some public health issues, right, that are addressed just in one fell swoop with kids in the garden. And, we look at things like the, obesity rates that are happening, diabetes. So, of course, if you look at food, when kids actually have a hand in growing the food, planting the seeds, pulling a carrot out of the ground, they really have buy-in. And when they have buy-in, they're much more likely to actually eat that food.
That makes a lot of damn sense.
Yes, it does.
Pardon my language.
Yes. When you actually plant a seed and you watch that sprout and you tend to it, you do end up wanting to eat it. I've seen it time and time again. So it really has a big impact just on what they're eating, but there are other impacts too. I mean, you're looking at physical health. They're out there digging. They're working the compost and doing all those different things that take physical exertion. And the other thing that people really don't think about that I've been trying to talk about more is the mental health benefits, because we do know that we have a mental health crisis in this country, probably around the world post-COVID. And there's something that happens when you get in the garden and that you kind of don't expect necessarily. For myself, I got into gardening because I wanted to grow vegetables. And I've really found that the impact that I'm having, the benefit it's having on me, is even bigger in the mental health space. So if we can get those kids out in the garden, cooperating with one another, just having your hands in the soil, being outside in a fresh air and a beautiful space that has flowers growing, bees pollinating flowers. You can watch that activity. You can see what's happening in a compost pile and how you can take waste and actually then put it back into your plot and watch your plants grow from the waste. There is just something that's really invigorating, and it can have a really big impact for kids when they get out in the garden. So it's a really helpful program, and we're happy that we have it. We're happy we have Jessica leading it.
No, it is a big deal, and it even does help low-income communities too. I saw and read about, which is a huge thing to do, because again, there's not a ton of opportunities for everyone equally. But when it comes to gardening and doing that, there are. You don't need an iPad to garden.
That's right. Yeah, it gets you away from the iPad. Really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I'm not sure if you notice, kids love tools.
Yes.
Gardening comes with a lot of tools that we don't think about. It's not about bandsaws and sharp things like that, but it is about shovels, digging. Kids love to dig.
Oh my gosh. I used to work at the Tucson Village Farm, so I worked with kids all the time in the garden, and I didn't find one kid who didn't want to dig in the soil with a shovel that was the right size for them. You got to make sure you get the right size tools, and once you do, they're out there. And it's kind of just, I guess, core to who we are. Obviously, it's kind of where we came from, and it just comes right back. You just see it that it's just something they want to do, and it's fantastic to watch.
Yeah, we were talking off air a little bit about let's go to the next program, and it's what kind of just expands on the kids gardening. It's family gardening. So it's not just the kids. Get your brother, get your sister, get your older siblings, get the cousins, get the parents out. All my friends with kids are always so bored because they can't afford to go do all the things. Going to the movies now is a fortune.
Yeah.
Doing lots of things is really tough to do with the family, and they're always trying to entertain their kids, constantly figuring out new ways to entertain their kids. You can't sign them all up for hockey. You can't sign them all up for every sport and send yourself everywhere. Give yourself the freedom of volunteering. It's not a commitment like, again, I bring up sports because my nephew is in hockey, and the amount of expense that my friends back in the Northeast, hockey's big, lacrosse is big, they will spend so much time and effort in these camps and these things and the equipment, and it's so much. Whereas getting out there with your entire family to do a fun community activity, whether it's volunteering at some of these organizations helping the homeless, right? That can be a little scary for an adult.
Yeah.
People have stranger danger. You're not going to be afraid of plants.
Right.
All right. So go out and help these gardens and give yourself a weekend opportunity to really say, like, hey, kids, we're going to play farmer this weekend. We're doing this. This is a big day. It's a big fun event. So I love the family gardening program and the camp about it. So tell me about the family gardening camp.
Well, we really the best opportunity to get into the garden with families is, well, if you're a gardener, obviously, and you're renting a plot, then we would encourage you to bring your family out there and be a part of it. When I started, when I got involved with the Community Gardens of Tucson, it was through starting one of our gardens at the Highland Vista Garden. And the reason that I wanted to do that, I had small children at the time. And I attempted to grow a garden in my backyard, but I'm in an older neighborhood. I have a lot of overgrown vegetation, and it just wasn't conducive to growing well. I had too much shade. So I worked with the community gardens of Tucson to start a garden in my neighborhood. And then I started actively growing and working in the garden with my children. And I found that that was really, so it was just so amazing to be able to see how excited they were about it. And like I said, they love to see the result of it. But even if it's just for one day and you're not, a renter of a plot, you can still get out there every Saturday. We have the garden work days. So we started doing this just last year and we found that it's been really, really successful. It's an opportunity for people who aren't already involved in the community gardens of Tucson to come check out the gardens, actually do the work in the garden, bring the whole family. There's going to be a wide variety of projects, even from things from just doing basic, compost maintenance to, we have raised beds at some of our gardens that needed to be built, or we have Bermuda grass issues. So just getting that Bermuda grass tended to. We have a lot of different projects where we're building things. We recently had a Eagle Scout come out and build a board, like a community board in front of one of our gardens.
Oh, nice.
And so we have those now. We're starting. We weren't doing it when it was too hot outside, but now that it's getting into the cooler months, we are going to start scheduling those again starting in September. And every single Saturday, there's going to be a different work day at a different garden with different activities, and then there's an educational component to it as well. So each garden work day, part of the time you're in there working with your kids, working with the family, working with the other people in the garden, and the other part of the time there's going to be some sort of educational element to it. One of the ones that's coming up is on September 9th at the Blue Moon Community Garden, which is one of our most beautiful gardens. It's located right next to the Tucson House. Near downtown Tucson. And we're going to have just a general gardening 101 workshop that day.
Love it.
So if you're just getting started, join us out at the Blue Moon Garden on September 9th. And in the morning, I think it's 8 in the morning, we're going to have all of those work days posted on our website. And you can join anyone, and you don't even, you just show up. You don't have to RSVP or anything like that.
Oh, brilliant. All right. Make your plans, mark your calendar. If you don't make that one, every Saturday you got something to do with the family and the kids. How old were your kids when this started?
They were about 4 and 7.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
I love it because I'm willing to bet that that's the big thing about doing it with very, very young kids. You can impact something that might make them go, oh, this might be what I want to do for my whole life, right? Getting involved, getting out with plants. And I think removing some of the fear, I think, is a part of it, because something you do as a kid, then later you're like, no, it's easy to grow tomatoes. This is how you do it. That's a really big, important thing for growing up. And I think that that's just really amazing to really get kids out there doing that stuff and getting the hands-on experience and getting dirty.
And just learning about where their food comes from.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you from any experience working with kids, if you were to ask a child who hasn't been in the garden or been on a farm, where does your food come from? Do you know what the answer would be?
McDonald's.
Or the store.
The store.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
So we need to make the connection of where it's actually coming from and what it involves it involves a lot of time and energy.
Yeah.
We're dealing with some pretty significant challenges with climate change, that things that were predictable are no longer predictable.
Right.
So it's a matter of kind of connecting just yourself to the earth and really being dialed in to what's happening. Those are valuable skills to be teaching young people.
They are. I honestly say this a lot. I think that some of the people, when we talk about mental health, I feel that some of the people that have that problem when it comes to, I'll say specifically men and young men, is they are disconnected from nature to a degree, the biology of all of us, that we are part of this ecosystem. And I think that guys really lose some of their humanity to a degree. And some of that is being stuck inside, being introverted, not getting the skills to then become a little outgoing, and they get trapped, and that ends up being some of that incel movement in a way where kids are incapable, and they end up being really negative and resentful toward the rest of the world. And the Surgeon General talked about this past year. I'm not sure if you heard this. Loneliness was declared an epidemic right now. And I know it. I know that's a problem because I don't have it. I don't have that problem, but I had it when I was a kid. And I just flexed this muscle to be this outgoing guy because I didn't want to be the nerd I saw in every movie that just was getting beat up like I was. And that's kind of the point. But I know a lot of people and an entire generation are having a tough time because of some of the disconnect, the stranger danger, the phones and the technology being a little too distracting and a little too serotonin addicting and that sort of stuff. You're going to feel that serotonin when you are involved in a community garden.
Absolutely.
You have to pry yourself out of the house, and you have to leave your comfort zone, because You'll never be comfortable if you don't walk towards something that you're afraid of. And I always tell people that. You'll never find the light switch for a dark room if you don't go in it. And it might be right there on the wall, or it might be across the room. But go toward it, and it'll solve your problem. And that's why I was so excited to talk to you, because I know, I've already told people privately about like, oh, you have to see this organization that I'm going to interview, because it's exactly what you've been complaining about. It's exactly what you think doesn't exist. It's exactly what you think you need to start. All of you should just get together. You all know me, right? Go. Just go on a Saturday and get involved.
Absolutely.
So talk to me about food resiliency. That's another program that you have, and it's important. It's funded, provides low to no cost gardening opportunities, primarily economically marginalized individuals.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we have a couple different facets we're working on in that space. One is that we offer scholarships or plot fee assistance to those who qualify. And we do have a good number of our gardeners are on plot fee assistance. It's a tiered system depending on different factors. You can definitely look at our website, communitygardensoftucson.org, to see all the details about that. We want to make sure that our gardens are open to everybody, not just to people who can afford the $22 a month. So that's a big part of what we do. And then the other thing is that we have recently received a grant from the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona. They have a Thriving Communities grant we received this year. And we really want to be looking at our model and deciding, is this a model that works for everybody? And I think that we've come to the conclusion that we might need to make some changes and do some tweaking to ensure that there's things like accessibility, right? So we have raised beds, but can you get around the raised beds in a wheelchair? Is the ground too uneven to walk on if you have a walker? Or if you have some disability. So we're looking at accessibility issues. And then getting back to the grant, we got the grant for the Blue Moon Garden, which is the one I mentioned previously. Because that's located at right next to Tucson House, which is the largest low-income housing unit that the city owns.
Okay.
Most of the folks who live in the Tucson House are disabled or elderly or veterans, and they need extra assistance. So most of the folks in that garden are on plot fee assistance, but it also has a beautiful ramada with tables and chairs. It has an orchard. It has a composting toilet. And so we really want to build up that space as a community building space. It's also in the Thrive in the O5 community, which is the city's initiative to basically improve the 85705 neighborhood.
Oh.
And they really are using our garden as a flagship space for folks. We want to look at it like, how can we make this space really welcoming even for people who are houseless? How can we make it so that they feel welcome coming in and being a part of it? Maybe, community plots, being able to pick from the orchard, provide educational opportunities so they can understand, how to prepare the food. A lot of people will grow food and they'll just like, I don't know what to do with it, or I have too much of it. How do I deal with storage, that kind of thing. So we are going to be building more educational opportunities at that garden, and it is specifically designed for low-income people. And that particular garden, it's specific for that community. We're really targeting that community. There's a lot of need there. There's a lot of homelessness. There's a lot of addiction that you see there. You see a lot of conflict. There's a number of incidences that have happened in that garden. So it kind of provides us with a new perspective to really be able to look at what are we offering and how do we tweak it so that it actually works for everybody. In our historical model, we kind of rely on every single gardener to learn how to change their drip tape and do that if they get a leak or if it needs to be changed. Well, that might not be a realistic expectation for people who are disabled or really elderly, right? So we need to be looking at that and determining what works for everybody. And so we're really trying to do that through this opportunity that we've gotten with the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona. And then we're going to learn from it and hopefully build on it. And then we do have a number of other gardens that are located in similar kinds of communities, and we want to make sure that the garden is working for the folks that live there. So
as you're saying all that, the only word that pops in my head is oh, you're defining a beacon, and beacons are always usually associated with beacons of hope. That's what you have right there. That garden is a beacon for people looking for something, and you just described exactly what so many people are looking for, right? So go find that garden and find these gardens. They're all over our community in Tucson. With how many are you up to, did you say?
17.
17. That's incredible. Looking into the next year, do you have plans, or is there like a template for your goal is to open 3 new gardens a year or 5 a year, or is like, how does that work?
It's a good question, and it does come up a lot. It's not uncommon that we get approached by folks who are like, I'd really like to start a community garden in my neighborhood. Oftentimes those questions come to me because I'm the person on the board who did it with the Highland Vista Garden. We don't really have those goals. We might someday, but I'll tell you what, just running a nonprofit, we have, a very small amount of funds for paid staff, which we do have, but we're trying to just become, not a work like our working board is basically doing a lot of the works. We're trying to hire an executive director and get to the point where we're a little bit more stable. And I think we are getting there. We've definitely grown our board of directors lately. We have a lot of great new folks with new ideas. So we're kind of just working on stability. And then once we get to that point, once we have an executive director and we can do more fundraising, then we would be willing to grow in that way. But it's not easy. The thing is about gardens is that oftentimes people will start, I've seen it a lot because I have been in this world for a number of years now with school gardens and with community gardens. It's not uncommon for people to love the idea, start the garden, and then not understand what it takes to maintain it and keep it sustainable.
Yes, I think that's a lot of hobbies and things.
Yes.
A lot of things I just say it's joining the gym.
Yeah, exactly.
It's easy to join, easy to sign up. It's also easy to start a small business when you're just making the funny name and the logo. And then beyond that, it's like, oh, wait.
There's all this work.
There's all this work to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's it. And so we're not discouraging folks. What we do is we are very clear now about what it takes. You need to make sure you have a piece of property that it has access to water, that you can get the shed, that you can fence it off, and that you've got volunteers in place. Each garden needs to have a site coordinator. That site coordinator then needs to organize all the gardeners, make sure they've paid, make sure that they have the education they need, they know how to do the irrigation, et cetera. I mean, it's a lot. There's composting that happens. A lot of our gardens have orchards, so that's additional maintenance. So it's just a lot to maintain, and you just have to make sure that you've got what you need to really make it work. Because if it doesn't work, and you open a garden, and in a year or two, it's just another piece of barren land, you're kind of showing people it doesn't work, and we don't want to do that. We actually want to show people that it does work.
Right.
So it needs to be sustainable in order for us to acquire new gardens. I will say a couple of years ago, we did acquire an existing garden, the Pio Decimal Garden, that's in South Tucson. It had been a garden that had been managed by the community for many, many years. And then they found themselves in a place where they couldn't do it anymore. And they asked us to take it over. And in that case, we did, because it was already well established and we could see that it already had its history there. So I can't say it never happens, but having goals to have more gardens is probably a little bit in the future, but not completely out of the question.
Hey, you know how to grow things. You don't want to overwater this plant. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. A lot of the downfalls of lots of things is expansion too quick, or not keeping it the right stable size. You talking about stability is exactly what you're looking to do. It makes sense because you don't want to just make a egregious error with something just because it is. I'm shocked personally. I feel like community gardens should just be a movement that one day will be a tidal wave of like, oh, everyone finally started doing it. Because it just makes sense. And then you sometimes see it in other countries or on rooftop gardens in those urban centers. And it's like, yeah, why isn't that just the standard? And that's because certain people are in power and they stop that sort of thing.
I would love to see that happen. I think it could, we're starting to build relationships with the city of Tucson. The city of Tucson has their climate action plan. Tucson Resilient Together, I believe it's called. And one of the things in their plan that they want to do to address climate change is really promote local food production and more composting to deal with their waste issues that they have at the landfill. So we are going to be starting to have 4 of our gardens coming up. We will be hearing about this soon. Will be drop-off sites for compost. That's another thing. So there's a lot of people who may not have the time or inclination to grow, but they know that they don't want their food waste to be going in the trash. They would love to be able to compost it. They just can't compost it at home. Maybe they live in an apartment or they just don't have the ability to do it. So we're going to be working with the city to do that, and so that people can drop off their compost, and then we can build compost for our gardens, and working with Compost Cats, which is another entity that's working with the city.
I love the Compost Cats.
Yes.
I'm going to try to have them on. I asked if I could have them on, and they're like, oh, we're not technically a 501c3. We work for this. I'm like, I think that kids doing this is fine. I'll be able to get them on here at some point.
You should.
Yes, I want to do that. I'll be honest with you, it's we're like running out of time. We've talked about all this stuff.
Right.
Can you believe it? I almost want to ask you a question. Like, do you want to just go longer and have two parts? Or do you want to just sum it up?
If you want to keep talking.
I want to keep talking.
Okay.
All right. So I'm not going to rush things off. Okay. I'm going to just keep going. Tell me, because there's two more programs that we're going to talk about, and they do have to do with moving here, gardening in general, and the education. All right. So let's talk about your desert gardening program. Because all these people that do move here, like me and like other folks from other areas, other climates, and with what we're dealing with climate change, how are you teaching people about the desert gardening program? Or what are you teaching people in the desert gardening program?
So that's kind of a mixed bag of educational opportunities at the individual gardens themselves. So we do have most of the gardens, and we encourage this with the site coordinators, although we can't require it. We have monthly meetings in the individual gardens. So the gardeners can come together, do some maintenance on a regular basis, and then learn oftentimes it's from their site coordinator. In the past, it's been with master gardeners and other educators. So, it is not simple. I don't want to lead people to think that it's easy to grow in the desert. I think it is much easier in the winter than in the summer. But we do need to be teaching people really about the fundamentals of soil preparation. That's a big thing. That's where it all starts. Our soil, you know that if you were to dig, first of all, could you even dig a hole in most of our soil? The answer is probably no.
Right.
I know when I started my garden, I needed to get an excavator out there to dig down 3 feet.
Wow.
And so we've done that. It's and most of our beds are pretty. They have that compost that's been added for years now, and but we do have to make sure that each growing season we're adding amendments to it. It just really taps. The desert really taps those, the nutrients that are in the soil. So we need to make sure that the soil has what it needs in order for the vegetables to grow properly. And ultimately, it's that nutrition that you're giving to the soil that's nutrition that is going into the plants, and that's the nutrition that you're eating. And so we teach people a lot about preparing the soil by adding compost or steer manure to it. We are big fans of composting, and we do encourage people. We do not allow any sort of pesticides or herbicides to kill off plant or bugs or weeds.
Nice.
That makes it a little bit harder, though. It absolutely. In that you can't just spray something. You have to. If you've got aphids, you've got to.
I was just gonna say I hate aphids. I hate aphids.
You got to break out the soapy water and rub them off.
Yep.
And you got to pay attention to it, and you got to have those hands involved. And if you stop paying attention to it, then it could be a problem. But again, if you got the soil health in place and you actually have the foundation, then oftentimes things will take care of themselves. And it's that when you kill off some bugs or whatever. There's many, many beneficial bugs. Most of us can't tell the difference between the ones that are killing our plants versus the ones that are actually beneficial. Like a ladybug is going to eat your aphids, right? So you want the ladybugs. But if you spray it, you're going to kill the ladybug too. So we want to make sure that we're educating people about sustainable practices and that they are organic in nature. And ultimately, water in the desert is another big thing. So we teach people that the drip irrigation system is the best way to get the most water to the roots of the plants without the evaporation.
Okay.
So it's the best water-saving technique to use in the desert. We teach them about how to install the drip irrigation and change it and things like that. So those are the main focus. Then the time of year of planting, that can be, and that's changing. We have a planting guide on our website, but at the same time, it's like, things are happening out there that weren't happening before. So the guide is a good general guide, but year to year, we might find that there are differences. You might, plant a lettuce plant in September because that was always the right thing to do. And if it stays hot through October, it might bolt before it even gives you much. So we do need to be teaching them how to be kind of intuitive about it and really think about the weather as the changing weather as something they should be thinking about what they're growing.
But now let's just talk about some of the ways that you get everything done, some of the people helping you that are involved with community gardens, and how others can get themselves involved, because there's a lot of ways to get involved with the community gardens of Tucson without getting your hands dirty entirely. So let's talk about some of that. First, the biggest thing, let's thank some of your community partners. Who are some of the friends that have helped you make this organization so great?
There are so many entities that have helped us. So we have a wide variety of ways that people can help. So we've got a bunch of different businesses that have helped us through our Adopt a Garden program. So if you have a business, whether it be a small business or you're part of a larger corporation, it doesn't really matter. If you're willing to make a donation to a particular garden, So, for example, the Denton Family Foundation and recently donated for our garden. We have Home Depot that's given us a bunch of different supplies to build those raised beds. They're adopting gardens. I mean, it could be really anything. We'll put a thanks of a sign for your business on our garden, asking you, thanking you for what you've done. And so that's an ongoing opportunity for people to really support us and also get a little bit of eyes on your logo and get the thanks out there. So those are the recent ones. As far as other nonprofit organizations, like I said, we worked with the Community Bank of Southern Arizona. We work with, we have a good number of refugee gardeners. So we work with the International Rescue Committee. Many people come from overseas to this country, and their background and their, what they know and what they cherish is agriculture. And they come here, and there isn't a lot of opportunity to do that. And they want to continue doing it. And they might want to continue growing foods that they can't even buy here in the grocery stores. So we work with the International Rescue Committee to make sure that we can communicate effectively. We actually do. They offer translation services to us, so they can understand what they're getting into and what the requirements are. And then we basically have many of our gardens actually have refugee gardeners. So we've worked with Ishkashita, which is a local organization that actually gleans produce from trees. So when we have a glut of grapefruits and oranges and things like that, they will come out and offer it to their refugee populations. So over the years, there's probably hundreds of organizations that have helped us do what we do, because we're really almost exclusively, we're not 100% volunteer. Like I said, we do have an administrative manager, hopefully an executive director here soon. We have an operations manager, somebody who's helping in our gardens with the watering and the maintenance and stuff. But other than that, every single thing that's done is through volunteers or organizations who are helping to support us. So we really couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, volunteering. It's the biggest message I always talk about here on Lifestyle Tucson. It's helped my life entirely. It's about making those friends and getting out in the world. And that's really, really the most important part of things. So if you're not a big corporation like Home Depot, you can still help by volunteering. And the interesting thing about your website that I noticed is that you give a lot of options on how to volunteer. So let's talk about some. It's not just going there and digging. It's not just going there and doing that. There's a lot to do, the work it does take. So let's just talk about some of the ways that you can volunteer. I got a list. Stop me when you feel like adding some in. There's maintenance and general cleanup at gardens on garden work days, of course. You got installation of new equipment or construction of a new garden. I know my roommate would love that sort of thing. And I know that when I was doing Navy Week here on Lifestyle Tucson, the naval officers came to Tucson and they went to various organizations like yours that would be like, oh, we did help build that day. That's what they did. So even if it is going to volunteer by constructing some of these things, some of the beds you were talking about, that's an important way to do stuff. So then you've got attendance at events representing CGT, such as Earth Day or other sustainability events. Tell me about that. What can people do there?
We want to make sure we find that there's still a lot of people who have never heard of us. So we
Always.
appreciate you helping out with this, because a lot more people are going to hear of us just from listening to this. So we do like to get out to community events and just get people to understand that we exist and how you can become involved. Earth Day is one of those, but we have, it just varies month to month. Not a whole lot in the summer, but in those fall and winter months when there's a lot of community events happening, we do tabling. And so having people there to help represent, sometimes staffing that can be a little bit difficult if they're on the weekends, so helping with that. But there are so many other things. Like really, we have a volunteer who she just puts our newsletter together. She doesn't write the article. She's just putting it together, right? That's one little task that she has that she can do. We are looking for more people to serve on our board of directors as well. We have built it up pretty well, but we are looking to get a maximum of 15.
Okay.
We're at 9 now. We're particularly looking for folks with legal experience or like accounting experience, that kind of thing. So you could volunteer we have monthly meetings on our board of directors. Again, we're moving out of the working board and trying to be just a general board, so it's not so intense. We want to make sure the more people we have involved, the less there is to do for everybody. So we did at a time when we were when it was slim pickings, it was a little difficult because there were not enough people.
Yeah.
Now there are more people, and that we want even more people to be involved. And, we are a nonprofit, so fundraising is a huge time-consuming task, right? So, every year we can be accepting donations from folks. I want to mention that we are a qualified charitable organization, and if you don't know what that is, there's a long list of organizations that you can give. If you're a single person, you can donate up to $400 a year. If you're a married couple, $800 a year. And you can give that right at the end of the year. It goes 100% of it goes to the Community Gardens of Tucson. I'll tell you what, $800 goes a long way for us.
It does. This is a tax credit, right? This is your annual tax credit.
Yeah, when you file your taxes, if you're paying, you got to make sure you're paying that much in state taxes, then you get 100% of that back. So it's literally just a lag time of that you might be out that $400 or $800 between the time you donate and the time you actually get your tax refund. But ultimately, it's going to come back to you. So it's literally no money out of your pocket, and you can give us up to $800, and it's nothing out of your wallet. It's going to come back to you. So that is by far such an easy way for people to support us. It's very similar to the school tax credit program, but it's not the same. It's just for charitable organizations. It's a separate donation.
I believe I even had IBE on talking about how the tax credit works really in depth. Go check it out. Previous episode of Lifestyle Tucson. If I could understand it, I know that you can, because a lot of these great organizations talk about how those tax credits really do go far. And it is a way for you to donate almost $1,000 to something that you truly believe in without actually giving a dime.
That's right.
That's incredible. And these are the programs that we all complain about government, but that's the thing that the government that did correctly.
That's right.
But not enough people know about it or take advantage of it. So you should you got to do it. It's in place. You got to do it.
Yeah, it's essentially it's directing your state tax dollars to something you want it to go to.
Yeah.
That's basically it. So you can have it be a free-for-all and let the state decide where your money goes, or you can have a little more power in where those state tax dollars go. And that's how it's done. So I encourage everybody to look into it.
That sounds like taxation with exact representation. Yeah, exactly. You're representing yourself.
That's right.
Don't throw the tea anywhere now. We got it. So that's pretty good. I want to also talk about the newsletter, because you have a great newsletter, and there's all the back issues of the newsletter. Are they issues? All the back issues of the newsletter are right there on the site. A lot of great info, and a lot of great info about your partners, about your successes. I often ask, tell me a success story. There's 100 of them right there in these newsletters. That's super important. So go subscribe to the newsletter. That's just a good way to just stay involved, stay informed, but you never know when something is going to get you motivated. If some of what we're saying is planting the seeds of desire to do something, just go subscribe to that newsletter, and they might give you some information that's going to actually get you to get up and go.
That's right. And you do not have to be gardening with us to receive our newsletter. So sign up for it, and you'll learn all about every month what we're doing and what's the hot topics are, where the work parties are. You'll see something from our usually one member of our board of directors will write an intro. We highlight our employees, and you can stay in touch with everything we're doing month to month through that newsletter. Yeah, it's really, again, if you're a person that really does have a green thumb and cares about this is an organization that you want to help, because they really care about your goals. They really care about the community of gardening and gardeners here in the city. Another way, I believe, is the Jim Click raffle. So you can buy a Jim Click raffle ticket for $25, and that's all supporting this organization. And I believe it's an awesome car or truck that is up for grabs this year, right? Yes, it usually is, being the Jim Click.
Yeah. So just a big pickup. Yeah, big pickup. You could fit a lot of groceries in there, but more importantly, you can fit a lot of vegetables that you grow yourself in there.
That's right.
Maybe take them to the old. Do you do stuff with the farmers markets when it comes to having some of this excess maybe vegetation or excess I grew far too much squash, it's always squash. Do you partner with some of those groups?
We haven't historically done that, because typically what we do we try to guide people to actually grow what they want to eat and then what they can eat. But if you're a single person and you've got 60 square feet and you're doing it right, you probably have too much.
Yeah.
So what can you do? We would, again, nothing against the farmers markets, but it takes staffing. It takes time.
Right.
We don't usually have so much that we could actually sell it week to week. But that we basically encourage people to share it through that community concept of put out an email to all your gardeners, or put a sign in your plot that says, "Feel free to pick my tomatoes. I have too many of them." The other thing is that the community food bank does have consignment, so people are free. If there are folks who have multiple plots and they want to try to make some money off it, then they can do consignment through the community food bank's farmers markets.
Do you think it would be smart for a community food bank to try to actually have a garden like this?
They have their own.
Okay.
They do have their own. They have Las Malpitas, which is their own garden for their community. It's on the west side of I-10. I think they may have another garden too. So, and they have their own farmers market. So we're partners. We definitely have very similar mission.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, but us growing at their farmers markets is just a little bit beyond, I guess, what our realistic capacity could be.
It's about growing smart, and even your organization, growing it smart, not overgrowing it, not overstaffing, not doing it in a way that doesn't make sense. And even that is the best answer, is like, no, your community garden is like, people don't overgrow. They're growing what they need. They're growing that amount. So that's smart and really makes sense because, again, if you do it too much in one direction, it disrupts the ecosystem of that garden.
That's right.
Yeah, there's a lot of when it comes to the ecosystems, but let's also talk about another great way that you can help out is beautiful cards. So you've got beautiful cards. Local artist Sandy Smith creates beautiful greeting cards, and the images are from vegetables grown in the community gardens. They're great photos. They are. Like it's
gorgeous.
It is. Like you make these carrots look amazing. They look like art. Some of those things, that bulb, that photo of that gorgeous vegetation is amazing. 100% of the proceeds go to the community gardens of Tucson. You could purchase them. It's $15 for a package of 6 cards. And they are also available locally if you want to go to the Tucson Audubon Nature Shop, Antigone Books right there on 4th, and the Tohono Chul Park Museum shops. You can get them there, or you can go find them probably on the website, order them right there, correct? Fantastic. What's your website again?
Community Gardens of Tucson. .org.
Yep, it's a .org for sure. That's how you know they're mature.
Yeah. That's right. We're an actual org.
So we've talked about some of these goals going forward. It's just about growing smart, doing it, being sustainable the way that you're doing. Let's just talk about if there is anything specifically that pops to your mind. Like, just tell me one of your favorite success stories of the community gardens of Tucson. Like, do you have like a specific thing that stands out, an individual perhaps?
I would say I think back to the folks who started the Community Gardens of Tucson. They're actually passed away now. That was George Brookbank and Darlene Schacht. And I think about the time that many years after they started the Community Gardens of Tucson, I decided to start the Highland Vista Garden and have it be affiliated with the Community Gardens of Tucson. And they, especially George Brookbank, he used to be a master gardener at the Cooperative Extension, so passionate about building community through gardening. And he had been part of it for so long, but yet he went out of his way when I started my garden to come to our garden meetings, to provide the education. He was like 90 years old.
Wow.
At the time, and so he alone inspired me to continue, be really passionate about this. I could see through him what he was trying to achieve by starting this organization. And the fact that we've been able to maintain it for so long, it is not easy to maintain, especially one of our size. We do not have a lot of resources. Like I said, we've never had an executive director. That's how small we are. Yeah. So we've managed to succeed through a board of directors and some dedicated staff and volunteers over 30 years, succeeding on George Brookbank's idea of what he wanted through the Community Gardens of Tucson. And honestly, that's the success story, is just that we've been able to maintain what he started. And I think that he would be proud of that if he were still here today.
I mean, I've been talking to him. I think that he would be damn proud. Yeah. I said damn again. That's right. Yes. So I always ask this because, again, we're going to, this is a two-parter. So I just want to ask you, if you had one wish for your organization, what would it be?
I would wish for continued sustainability. And that is, like I said, that's difficult. So I would wish that there's plenty of people involved in a variety of ways that we've talked about, maintaining that, and that we do not have to worry about going into the red, and we can pay our staff and we can maintain our gardens. And ultimately, like we talked about in the previous episode, that we could actually grow, because we do want this movement to grow and get bigger. We do want people to understand the connection between gardening and health, physical health, mental health, community health, spiritual health, really. I mean, it is, sometimes you get out there and you see things like, I saw these beautiful birds that were attracted to the sunflowers that we had. These birds, they're little teeny birds with yellow bellies. I didn't see them ever, except the fact that they love these flowers.
Wow.
So you get, you have those moments sometimes in the garden. And so if we could grow that and build it and really allow people to see what can happen in a garden space, and have it be a lot more prolific, especially with younger people. That would be my wish.
One of my favorite things, that's a good wish. One of my favorite things that's happened is I hang out with my girlfriend's little son, right? And I can get him very easily to put that Nintendo Switch down, and we'll go out and it's like, let's look at leaves. He does. He loves nature. He goes, let's hunt bugs. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll go hunt some bugs. And it was so funny because that's the thing about hanging out with kids is that you really get to see the world again. And you see things that you don't, in a way take advantage of or respect, like a leaf. And how pretty a leaf can be. And then when you look at several leaves, let's look at these leaves. Him describing why one leaf is better than another. Him picking up the tiniest spider, right? The tiniest spider I've ever seen. He's like, I want to keep the spider. He named him. It's in a cup. We need an ant to feed the spider. Okay. Go find the tiniest ant. And I'm like kind of rolling my eyes. Well, that stupid ant made a beeline right to that spider. And that spider, that was, again, the size of like a dot. All of a sudden just whips around that little ant and I'm like, oh, look at this. Oh, look, it's happening. Oh, and we're excited and talking about it. And that's nature.
And you know what? I think adults should be watching children in that way a lot more, because that is just who we are inherently. We kind of learn to not be that way over time, right? So if we can watch children and younger people in those spaces and see their enthusiasm and see what actually is intriguing them, we could be learning a lot from that. And I think we'd be happier people.
Well, I think so too. Yeah. I agree. Kids seem to be pretty happy.
Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss.
Exactly.
But I'll tell you, it helps when you're out there in the world, out there communing with nature for real, feeling it and getting involved. And again, just hanging out with people. That's what I like the most about it, is just getting together and having a project, a group project that at the end of the day, you all did something that you can be proud of. You grew something that exists and is real. And I believe that is absolutely the way I'll get that kid to eat carrots.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right?
Sometimes it's the only way.
Yeah. So funny. Where can people discover more information about Community Gardens of Tucson online and on social media?
So www.communitygardensoftucson.org is our website. We have almost everything you need on that website. And even if you're just a gardener and you want to learn about how growing in the desert, I would encourage you to go to that website to see all the different educational resources that we have there. And then we are on Facebook and Instagram at Community Gardens of Tucson.
There you go.
Please follow us.
Easy to follow, easy to spot. That sounds so good. And you better go follow along, because today we made friends with Natalie Shep, Board Vice President of Community Gardens at Tucson, whose vision is to create a stronger, healthier, more vibrant Tucson through our community gardens and partnerships. Thank you for joining me today, Natalie.
Thanks for having me. I've had so much fun.
Yay! This was Lifestyle Tucson. Bing bong bing. Time for a recap. A mega episode of Lifestyle Tucson. I made a radio edit version, but the conversation was going so well, I just want to keep it going. So that's here exclusively on the podcast. So thanks for checking it out, because you got all the extra details about the community gardens at Tucson, which is great. And if you want more details, why don't you go sign up for their newsletter over at communitygardensoftucson.org. You can follow them on Instagram at Community Gardens Tucson. Follow them on Facebook at facebook.com/Community Gardens of Tucson. Go buy those postcards. They're gorgeous, right? If you're not walking around, you can get them online, but you might find them at Tucson Audubon Nature Shop, Antigone Books, and Tohono Chul Park Museum shops. When you're in there and you notice them, remember you heard about them on Lifestyle Tucson. Go buy a raffle ticket from Jim Click, because it's the millionsfortucson.org raffle, and it's your chance to win a 2023 Ford Bronco Raptor. That's the truck that he's giving away this year. Second place is 2 first-class tickets to anywhere in the world. Well then, and restrictions apply for that, of course. I'm not sure if they're sending you Oz or parts unknown. But third place is $5,000. So why don't you go buy one of those raffle tickets? I think they start at $25. Go find out all the details over at millionsfortucson.org. What a good time. I really enjoyed my conversation today. I really can't thank Natalie enough for staying as long as she did. So I want to thank our new friends at Community Gardens of Tucson for joining me today. You've been listening to Lifestyle Tucson. If you're a nonprofit that would like to be on the show, email lifestyletucson@gmail.com. For more information about this program, or to listen to something you may have missed, go to the Sunday Mornings page on klpx.com, kfma.com, mixfm.com, or espntucson.com. You can also subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever fine podcasts are sprouting. Follow on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Lifestyle Tucson, because I'm your BFF, your best Frank forever, Frank Powers. Toot Toot Tucson. I love you the most.